I'll not linger on this too much because most people won't be interested, but one of my best mates, Simo, he always used to say, and I forgot, we used to have a player, you know, like you get Brazilian players and they just have one name.
Yeah.
Ronaldo, the original R9. Well, we had a player called Marcelo.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I think it was on the end of season United video, we used to get like a summary and it'd like be all the highlights. And for some reason, they just refused to allow him to have one name. So they used to call him John Marcelo. And I've never heard anybody talk about it. And then I was listening to this podcast just yesterday and Rob Nicholson mentioned it. And I was like, I thought I was making it up. And it like blew me mind, like, is he a John Marcelo? It's just the stuff like that.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it just made me laugh. And I just thought it's amazing that you grow up in a city, obviously Sheffield's got 600,000 people, but you're growing up with someone that you don't know, but you're sharing the same experience. Because he was talking like, he's seen a few Sheffield United players, because he's done loads of photography and had an involvement with United. Yeah. And he'd go up and say hello to someone, but he forgets that he thinks he knows them because he sees them on TV and playing, but they've got no idea who he is. But you already know loads of stuff about him, but they've got no idea, and it's just like that mad, like seeing a celebrity or something.
Yeah. It's funny, linking to the South American effect of football. Yeah. We were talking about this, like we were saying that certain players, like Kelleher, like Liverpool's second keeper, is absolutely world class. He could easily be in the first team. Yeah. But because he's called Kelleher and he's Irish and he doesn't look particularly like a cool person, it's funny that like the value of these people just won't go in this way. And like John McGinn for like Villa, I think he's the same, like Scottish guy, like he's an absolutely incredible player. He had an amazing season, but because McGinn and Scottish,
it's not sexy enough.
No, it's not.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
But yeah, talking about Sheffield stories like back in the day sort of thing, people might not know that you were in a band. Your original band called The Field. I just think it's it really harks back to a different time, like the indie era, doesn't it? Like, yeah. And you were kind of playing around about the same time when the Monkeys were coming up.
We literally
same circuit as such.
Yeah, I think we were doing gigs at the exact same time, or if not just before. But we weren't from the cool. Talking about sexy, we weren't from the cool side of Sheffield, where this all S6 etc. The other side of Sheffield, the Wednesday side. We went from that side, and we were also heavily influenced. The Field was heavily influenced by, like, I'll just say Britpop, and at that point it wasn't trendy, so we didn't fit in.
What year was this as well?
This will be like 2005.
Yeah, so you're in the heart of indie era there, aren't you?
Yeah, we literally first released our first EP in 2005. So we named the band The Field, as in Sheffield, because they're a band from Blackburn called The Burn.
Wow.
I think Adam came up with that, the lead singer. Clever. I've still got it tattooed on my wrist, by the way. That's why I keep looking at me.
Yeah, nice. You didn't fancy the chef?
No. And whenever anybody asks me, I always say, "Oh, that's where I was born, in the field." That's literally it. I can't bother to explain.
It's not worth it.
I need to get it removed, to be fair. It's had its days.
There you go. Served a purpose.
Yeah.
But what kind of... Where were you playing? Like, what kind of gigs were you doing, and how were the gigs at that time?
Yeah, so we had a really good following from our side of the... So basically, I'm from Intake and Woodhouse. Yeah. We got like tarnished with a little bit of a football hooligan brush because we had a lot of mates that were like getting into a bit of bother. It's all part of growing up, I guess. In a city like ours, anyway.
This is the casuals.
Yeah, there
scene.
You go.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I've grown up with, like going to matches, terrace culture. It influences how I look, you know what I mean? Obviously I've got no hair now, but obviously I used to have my hair in the same, you know what I mean? All ties in, culture.
Yeah.
But yes, we did some amazing gigs. We sold out the smaller room in the Lead Mill, and that was the first time that a local independent band had done it. So it was like but then Arctic Monkeys come along and extracted stuff like the Streets and the Strokes and made a Sheffield version of it and went off and did what they did. We were never good enough.
But you were so ingrained in that band culture, in that world, just the indie era in particular, like that almost felt like the last bastion of a subculture, really, and people were dressed in a certain way and acting a certain way. But yeah, I mean, did that kind of lead you to think, I want to go down my own route of being a producer and doing my own thing?
Well, yeah, just to go back to your point there, I was saying it the other day about tribes. When I was growing up, and probably when you were growing up, you kind of, at school, you picked a tribe, and that influenced the way you looked, your haircut, what you listened to, and that was it. Like, really, it was like, you had the odd goth at school, but you'd have for us it were garage, grime, R&B and indie, and then odd ones that just didn't like music. I don't understand that, but now nothing's tribal. When we were in the band, there was a period where it went from we love doing this, and then everybody saw the rehearsing as a chore, whereas I never did. Life moves on, and music were always like my escape. I didn't realise it at the time, I was too young. But
did you kind of look at all this as like, I want to get to this level with this band, I want to
I genuinely thought I was the best drummer in the world. Like this, that's what I'm saying. It's when I was 17, 18, I was a cocky little SH1T, and then life catches up with you, and then it like shapes you into like how I am now. But yeah, I were absolutely determined, even if everybody wasn't, to drag them along with me. That's hence why the other three that were in the band with me, they don't do music anymore. It's just, that's not a criticism, it's just a reflection of I've always had that determination.
Did you see yourself as I know you're a big Stone Roses fan, did you see yourself as Manny from the Roses with the bucket hat?
Rennie, absolutely, mate. I even had a bucket hat that had Jackson Pollock painted, and it were all like crunchy and bits would fall off when you're playing drums. You just end up with a bit of acrylic paint in your mouth. We did shoes, drum skins. Obviously it's still up there. That and Led Zeppelin, John Bonham. I had drum lessons at school. My mum paid for drum lessons, and there's drum music and you have to sit and read sheets. Tasha will tell me off for this because I use the terminology autodidact, which means you like to teach yourself stuff. I just don't like listening to people generally. Knobhead.
But then obviously like you like collaborating, so obviously like in this case doing this album, collaborating works because you're kind of extracting the best parts of people and allowing them to enjoy themselves as well, like having their input, rather than just being like, right, we need to get this gig, so we need to rehearse this amount. Because then that can feel like work, can't it? So I suppose in a way it's just finding the bits that work best for everyone and collaborating in that sense. 90%
of what I've been doing for the last few years is people management. I don't mean that it's like a job. It's just a case of like understanding people and navigating them. We're all complex in his own ways. Going back to your initial point, Moby's works with loads of different people, but he likes to record whatever that person's bringing and then say, go on, go away, and then leave him in his own little world. I'm similar to that. I'm trying to change a little bit, but I like to just say, right, you come down and do this, and then go away and I'll chop and edit, and it's like a balance. I am learning a lot to sit and work with people, especially now I'm trying to form a bit of a band, because obviously what I want people to do is turn up with their expertise and contribute, not me say play this chord at this point for this long. It's like here's the core of an idea, please I'm asking you because you offer this to bring your contributions to it and elevate it and take it to different directions.
I suppose that's why being in a band's so hard, isn't it? Because you have to all be on the same page from the get-go and follow the same direction, and you have to be just absolutely locked into that vision. So basically that's what happened with The Field. I got frustrated that we were getting tarnished with this Britpop kind of sound, so I remember Klaxons came along, and I've always been into electronic music, so why don't we bring in elements of like the Chemical Brothers do it, so why can't we? And that were the foundation of me starting to carve a path, and the others who were loosely interested in that but not enough, and it were like I started to carve a path and find a new direction, and the others were like, no, this isn't working for me and it's becoming too much of a chore. There's always been so many hints of dance music in indie culture. I think one of the earliest examples I can think of is Primal Scream, and that obviously famously like collaborating with Weatherall and bringing that into the acid house era, because I listened to that album and it's very interesting. Like the first track is My Light Shines On, so that's like an indie anthem. But then the next one, it goes into like proper acid house. But it goes through such a variety. And I think in my indie era, because I went through a huge indie era, and I think deep down I still the music, which if I'm ever feeling a bit jaded from listening to too much music, that's my reset button. Indie tunes, whether it's like the Smiths or Cure, all that stuff, as well as Vampire Weekend. And
so when you were in that era, what was the current band Vampire Weekend? Was that like
Vampire Weekend, or I used to really love a group called Animal Collective, which were a bit more on the spectrum of like experimental electronics with again with like kind of a traditional band setting. I just used to love all that kind of music. I just find it very visceral and it's very refreshing to the palate when you've listened to too much stuff. But I think like Primal Scream, the example of that merging of worlds. And then there's been other ones like, I mean, LCD Sound System again is like sort of like the middle ground. Chemical Brothers, again, they fit that kind of those two worlds colliding. It sounds like you wanted to do that.
We were all good musicians, but I felt restricted just by a 4-piece setup, literally. Drums, bass, guitar, vocals. We didn't have enough. So I always thought,
let's use the studio.
Yeah, let's bring in or introduce these other elements that can help embellish things a little bit. That's where the struggles came from, because, like I say, some of the lads are just like straight up indie kids, and it's like not bothered about that 808 drum sampling. Take it out. So try not to upset anyone else, like any of my mates. So.
That was a good idea.
Yeah, just different ideas, but it says it all that I've persevered. This latest album, there's tracks on there that are just like indie rock, sealed with a loving kiss with Scarlet. The foundation of it is distorted guitars and me playing drums. It's like back to my roots, Richie Havens.
Is there any part of you that misses being in a band? Do you ever think like, oh, I quite like that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not, that's why I'm trying to form one at the minute. But I have this real. I know we're sat here talking about myself, but it's really uncomfortable, like, because I weren't the singer in the band like a Liam Gallagher kind of character, so I've always had this uneasy position where it's not the Yarny show. So I'm trying to form a band, but it's like, it feels weird that I'm orchestrating it, and that's why I'm saying I try to let people's personalities shine through rather than treating people like a session musician and saying, here's something. I want people to feel comfortable, and I'll feel comfortable. If not, it's like, what do you want me to do now, sir? And it's a bit too much. Yeah.
I think that's cool, because there's obviously lots of people who are wanting to be collaborators on albums. They want to offer their vocals, but they might not know where to go. So it's cool that you're serving as this like middle point for people to converge on and do that kind of thing.
Yeah, you get the best out of people, because if somebody comes to work with me on my music, they won't feel as much pressure because it's not their own. Jono, who's played on sax with me a lot, he'd record all sorts of stuff in person with me, and I'd pick the bits out that he'd have deleted and then fashion it into stuff, and he'd go, well, I wouldn't have thought about that, but it sounds amazing. It's like, that's the thing, because he's relaxing. You can overthink your own stuff. Let somebody else who you trust to have a go with might hear something that you can't hear, and then sometimes you look at it, you go, wow, I weren't expecting that. And that's the beauty of it, because then you're not at loggerhead saying, no, it does sound good, trust me. It's a case of like, wow, yeah, I weren't expecting that. That's the beauty. That's the things that I absolutely love about this kind of work.
Yeah. It's kind of, it reminds me of it like, like street photography, when people go around and just take random photos of people. It's a bit intrusive, but and obviously it's a bit controversial.
Pervert.
But in a way, like, I'll see people going around New York and they'll just like randomly like take a picture of some Italian American people just stood outside the shop or whatever, and they'll just snapshot it. They won't let them pose, because that's when the natural sort of the composition of the photo disappears. You have to just get that moment and do it like that, and it's capturing that energy, isn't it?
In the natural inhabitants.
But I think sometimes you need to be the opposite of a dictator being a producer. I know Brian Eno gives this really good example, talking about the Velvet Underground. And obviously they are probably the most stripped back band ever. Like, it's just
raw elements,
complete raw elements. And the beauty is that the producer, they captured the energy of that session. And rather than thinking, oh, we need to polish it up and we need to like master it and this and that, they just said, I'm going to completely leave it exactly how it is. And I think sometimes it's just
knowing when to make that decision.
Knowing when to do nothing.
That's what Richard Russell said, XL Recordings. So he signed Adele, and his takeaway from the experience was, Adele had this clear vision. No, I'm doing that. This is the final thing. And he were going to go, and he went, I made the right decision, and I did nothing. And at that point, it was the right decision, because obviously she's the biggest selling artist of all time or whatever.
Wow. So they were going to...
He wanted to overproduce it, and and she went, no, I'm not having it. And he were like, I'd never had anybody, obviously label boss, there's a bit of like, I'm the boss here. And he looked at her and he said, at that point, I stepped away and I made the right decision by doing nothing. Like, gives me goosebumps. I've literally got goosebumps.
It's so cool, isn't it?
To be in that position. Adele's not my kind of music, but to have somebody come into your life and you go, you think you know best and you can steer him, and this person comes with a clear vision and says, no, I'm not having that. This is what's happening, take it or leave it. And he went, yeah, you're right. And then then that's why she went back for the second album, because they had an amazing relationship with it, you know what I mean? It's like...
And that's what good collaboration is, isn't it? It's just recognising when one person has an idea and knowing that that's either what you should do or talking them around.
Yeah.
Because I think if the idea might not quite sit, sometimes someone might be open to being talked around into a different approach. Like they might be a bit unsure, but sometimes you will just know. You will just know how something has to go.
Yeah.
It's like doing a club night, for instance. Like when we started doing Machine Soul, we were originally doing it in bar settings, like in Sheffield, and it was great to be playing in those environments to start with. But then as time goes on and you're doing these sets and you're kind of thinking, musically, it's absolutely spot on. Like this is exactly the sound we want to push. It's exactly how, it's all coming together in that sense, but it's not quite landing because we're playing in a bar and because we're playing in a place that hasn't quite got the right system. I just knew that we needed to shrink it down into a club setting.
My observation of you is you're good at, in real time and longer term, like reflecting about your movements and your ideas and not just steaming in and cancelling stuff, just like having a bit of a sit back and like, hang on, there's something there, how can we tweak that to make it a better success?
Yeah, I think that's just come from 4 years of just saying yes to lots and lots of different things, which it's bad because you can burn yourself out through doing too much, but it's also very good because you then learn what it means to do all these different things. Like I was saying to you, like when I first wasn't even DJing, I used to just have my turntables and I'd be looking at DJing in bars and I'd be thinking, oh, that's my dream, I can't wait one day to get that gig. And then you get the gig and you kind of think, oh well, it's all right, but I'm now honing in on certain records which I know are really, really good.
Yeah.
Like, and I know that millions of people around the world agree with me, and you'll see how they land in other DJs' sets and you're thinking, well, that's where I want to play. I want to play there.
Yeah.
And you're starting to learn that your music isn't particularly suited for this environment, and it's not a mutually beneficial thing for anyone, really.
Yeah. But you've got the great attitude of not letting that like discourage you. You just go, these people aren't there for that. Rather than you get bogged down by it, you go, but I'll find the people that will be.
Yeah, because you know it exists, and I put huge credit to wherever it might be that I go that truly inspires me. Because you go to somewhere like We Out Here is like one of my biggest inspirations. I think it's one of the best festivals in the world. It's going from strength to strength, and it's a true representation of DIY culture to the highest level, and amplified onto showing all sorts of artists, which, whether it's DJs or live music, on such a platform and giving exposure. And I come back from that festival and I think, right, well, what I'm doing actually is worthwhile, because I know that there is a place that, and it genuinely, that festival links up with all the different projects that I can see. Like Mondo Radio were involved in it, and all different radio stations, promoters, people who I know in my DJ world play there.
But that's because, sorry to interrupt, but that's because people of influence within there that are ensuring, it's like the grassroots football issue, isn't it, where those at the top should be doing more. Well, We Out Here seems to be tapping into, hang on, we are all that, this won't be happening, so let's 100%. Make sure we're working with them.
100%, and it's truly taps into that, and because of that, the people that tend to go are interested in that music, or they might have been brought by people who are waxing lyrical about it, and then they get exposed to all sorts of stuff which, like my partner, she claims to not really like jazz that much, and I always say, go and see it on a big stage. Like go and watch a group like Simande, who you might have never heard before, and we were absolutely blown away. Like she was blown away by it, and I think that's the beauty of what proper promotion does. Is you are pushing a sound which other people would have hopefully never have wanted to ever hear.
Yeah.
And you've got them to go, that was really good. Yeah. I liked that, and that's exactly what with Machine Soul we try and do, and with all the other projects that I'm involved with, we try and do that. Like recently doing Milestones. Jazz dance. I mean, a lot of people, if you played like a jazz dance track to them, just like, here you go, listen to that, they'd probably be a bit like, there's no vocals, this is a bit, how do I dance to it? But you put it in that setting, and aesthetically, you dress it in the right way, and you get the right sound, and it's magical what you can actually do. You can actually convert people into, you're almost tricking them into enjoying themselves.
Well, I to that event, I brought 3 people with me who I tried to loosely explain the foundation of where it came from and what you're doing to try and bring it into Sheffield. They were like, well, it's a little bit like Northern Soul, and it's a little bit like funk, and it's a little bit like this.
That's some Latin elements in there.
And all three went, well, because we just popped in, but they basically said, well, the next time it's on, we'll come and make a night out of it or a day out of it. To do that, we a niche style of music and then convert three people that like music but the more indie or whatever their taste, and then go them to walk away seriously saying, yeah, next one that's on, let us know. That's an achievement in itself, for sure, because you're converting the general music fan as well as not just attracting like nerds.
The thing is though, what I've learned about DJing and promoting and everything else is that it's a really good way of forcing you to, not forcing you, but like inspiring you to curate music and collect it. Because I mean, I'm always on Bandcamp, always looking for stuff, but I won't really hone in on something unless I've got like, right, I've got this gig coming up that I really need to.
Yeah, okay.
And it kind of inspires you to curate this music.
It's like your radio shows.
It does force you into honing in on the sound, and actually the reason why I wanted to do Milestones, not the only reason, obviously, like, there's many reasons, but it's because I want to learn more about that culture and that setting and that very particular style of music. I want to learn more about that, and I know that all these people who DJ at these kinds of settings, they'll teach you loads. And it's the exact same with Machine Soul. I learned so much from all the DJs who come and play. They put you onto different ways of DJing that you didn't think worked in your original gigs, but then you see them doing it in your club night, and yeah, it's a really, really cool thing when it comes together. Like when we booked Move D, in fact, Benedict right now is in Berlin, and he's just talking to someone, like messaging, and apparently he referenced us talking to people, and he said that Sheffield is the Detroit of the UK, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Referencing our night and saying how much he enjoyed it, and I think
there's a lot of parallels there as well with the obviously the history, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. But there's just moments like that when you think that's really, really cool.
From such an esteemed, well-regarded character, that's like as good as you could get from promoting nights. Yes. And like going back to your points there, also, that's the great thing about you is, rather than going, you could say to yourself, well, I'm not an aficionado or this or that, and then never do it. You'll throw yourself out there, learn on the job, and that's kind of what I've done with Yanni. Similar, like, rather than, because you can hold yourself back. It's like when you're writing a song, when people first start out, they never release anything because whereas with you, your attitude is, I'm going to put it on, I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to learn from people if they're willing to share. You're like a sponge for everything, and it's a great attitude.
I think one thing I've always credited myself for is that I know what music will work in a scenario.
Yeah.
And I think that's the basic principle of
a DJ, as well as.
But I think doing it relatively well, though, I think you have to know that, and whether it's putting music together for a radio show and thinking what would work. Like, I'm thinking about pushing new music from this year on my show, solely just doing that, a Bandcamp focus. And you might say to yourself, oh, but I'm not always like organically discovering music. But then I think, actually flip it round and think, well, now you've got a reason to. So you best get digging, because you've got a show to put music together for.
And it's a nice thing that you're not forcing yourself, it don't feel like a chore, because it feeds into what you're interested in, which is great.
And then by feeding, and then giving yourself a reason to feed yourself with this music is very invigorating.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you look and you think, oh, I've got all these fresh tunes to play if I've got a new gig, and it keeps you breathing.
Yeah.
I went through a period last year when I made no effort to really try and discover new releases, and I just felt rubbish at the end of the year. I thought, this is not my purpose as a DJ and as a music person.
Yeah, only looking backwards and like digging, like
it just wasn't really like.
See, I have a dilemma with that, because I try to steer clear of too many things that are new and trendy, because I don't like to be influenced. You know, as a musician writing stuff, I have to be careful of, well, everybody's liking that, you know what I mean, jumping on trends.
Like Machine Soul, it's timeless dance music. It's just soulful house music is never ever going to go out of fashion.
Yeah. When I first started going out, it was like the prime era of like Head Candy CDs. I don't mind a bit of really, really dark techno, like Berghain vibes, but at the end of the day, you want to hear, I want to hear, and I think you do like a bit of a break from that, some chords and a nice bit of a vocal, or
the thing is,
like what Benedict does with his production.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the music he's been making recently is just incredible. I can't wait for his new record's imminently coming out. Right. It's very exciting. And he just tested it out in Berlin last night and said it absolutely went off. Again, going back to We Out Here, one of my biggest influences, just like the exact spot, is the Love Dancing tent at We Out Here. The sounds I've heard on that dance floor with the system set up, it's just mind-blowing, like how much you can actually enjoy music in there.
Yeah.
It's a Danley system. It's kind of curated by Colleen Cosmo Murphy.
Yeah.
She's involved in the
That's always a good start, those two.
It's a very good start. And it's just a place where you walk into and you hear music like you didn't really think it could sound like that.
Yeah.
And I remember when me and Jess went for the first year, it was just us two, we went together and we heard the Strings of Life remix, Soul Capsule remix for the first time in there, as well as Ain't No Mountain High Enough by Inner Life.
Yeah,
which is, for me, it's controversial, but that's the best version of that tune.
Ooh.
The Larry Levan remix of that, which I know everyone's going to say Marvin Gaye. I'm not. It's very, very close, but
you're gonna get hounded.
And Tammy Terrell, I know, but it's an incredible version. And hearing that in that room, in that tent, I should say, was just like, it's just so inspiring. Because again, it's warm. The atmosphere is warm. The lighting's warm. It's got a wooden floor. But then also, like, fast forwarding, we saw they also do another Sunday afternoon at Dingwall's in there, which is just like pure jazz dance all day. And again, I think Jess at the start of the day asked me, "How do you dance to jazz dance?" And I said, "Just wait until later." And I think it was like the last 2 hours we were in that tent, and we were just bopping around all over the place. It just allows you. It sounds really cheesy, but that setting in that environment, it allows the music to actually like take you in a way.
Festivals have moved on a lot since when I was going. I remember last one I went to, I had a pair of pink wellies on, and I went in a full basketball outfit and a straw hat.